please join me in welcoming to the stage Wynton Marsalis and Maurice DuBois.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting us in your house, by the way.
Oh, man, thank
This
you.
is the house that Wynton built.
I don't know.
I like what you've done with the place. How many years now?
A lot.
A lot of
I
years.
think this is our 13th year.
Spectacular. Spectacular.
Our 30th. We're celebrating our 30th season. Everybody's looking so good. I know so many people here. Hi.
I know a couple of folks too.
Yeah.
Little known fact, I'm one of the few people to beat Wynton one-on-one on his own basketball court. The only truth is that there is a basketball court, actually. It was back here in the backstage, right?
That's right. It used to be. We don't have it now.
You don't have it anymore.
Actually, we're very proud of the fact that the musicians never lost to the porters. We did not. They were recruiting porters from all over the city to beat us, and we did not lose one game in the 6 or 7 years. And this is true. Not unlike what you said. This was true.
Not what Trusted source of news. What do you mean?
You know, don't make me quote somebody.
It was a nice stress reliever, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not there anymore.
It's great.
But when I saw Wynton backstage just before, you were working on something.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. When they said James Brown was the hardest working man in show business, they had it wrong. That's all you do.
Yeah, I love doing it.
But you do it with joy.
I do. I love to do it. It's a blessing. It's an honor to be able to luxury of get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, work on music. Don't sleep, work on music. Get in a car, drive 20 hours, work on music.
That's right.
Music is I always wanted to do it. I love doing it. I like to practice. I like to play with musicians. I love to teach. My father did it. My mother was a social worker, and I always wanted when I was in high school, I always said if I could just get out of New Orleans, working was not an issue for me.
Not at all.
You know?
When's the last time you took a day off?
I don't, if my job is a day off. Like, I don't need to be off. I don't really look to be off.
When's the last time you chilled?
I'm always chilling. I'm chilling right now. I'm not, you know.
How much sleep do you get?
I slept about 3 hours last night, but.
Is that a normal night?
No, I'm really late with a piece, so then I don't sleep. I wait till
Seriously?
I'm really late, then I start to work to get enough pressure. And once the pressure builds up and I just have to do it, then I just work.
Seriously?
So yeah, I'm serious. Now I'm in the beginning of it's premiering June the 7th. So I worked on the outline for about 2 months. And now when I start to write it, I sketched it out. Now I have to start orchestrating it and writing it. So I'm gonna work all around the clock for the next 3 weeks.
What is it though that's driving you?
I think that a kind of a creative thing, we all have it. You know, we all have you have a dream or you have something that you feel really creative, something about, and it could be anything. Some people are that way about decorating a home, or some people are that way about cooking, some about playing ball, some about playing video games. I mean, it could be any type of pursuit. It could be very serious or it could be trivial. Some people, if you get that kind of fever or that bug about it and you love to do it, it drives you. And for me, it's just a general embrace of a humanity. And I used to always joke when I was in my 20s that I want to see our country change before I retire and go out and hear bands that could play jazz and younger people could be able to play, because at that time I would go around the country and hear schools and almost no one could actually play in the reality of jazz. Mm-hmm. And this is a great time for me, essentially Ellington, because we started this a while ago with the great Jack Rudin, and now with Gail and with Diane and with Susan. I love them a great deal. And it's so personal, the work that we do. And it's been so many years of us working. Everything for me is about the human impact of it and the truth of it and the depth of what you can transmit, and the fact that the honor it is to be in this type of work and to be able to interface with people of such quality and to strengthen each other. No matter what, I have to always make a point about when we started essentially Ellington with Jack Rudin. It wasn't so much about him funding a program, because I didn't really know about all that kind of stuff. He had fought in World War II. He had many experiences. He loved the music. trumpet, and we talked mainly about things about life. And my mother passed away last summer she suffered from dementia for a long time. One day, Gail and I were sitting in a restaurant, and we were talking very intensely. I was almost sitting on her lap, listening to what she was saying. And at a certain point, a guy in the restaurant was looking at, he said, what in the world could the two of y'all be talking about with this type of, he couldn't control himself when I was leaving. He said, can I ask you a question? What in the world were you and that lady talking about?
What were
I
you
said,
talking about?
her mother passed away from dementia, and she was telling me some things that I needed to do to prepare myself and to take care of my mother in this time. And when I told him that, because he was dealing with us from a demographic standpoint, racial or whatever, he said, fundamentals.
Basics.
So
right.
I love that comment that he said, fundamentals, because that's essentially, with you and I, all the years we've known each other, we talk about fundamentals.
Yep.
Different things we go
The
through.
basics. There's a great story you tell about being 11 years old with your dad. You're in a club in New Orleans, and it's 1:45
Right.
in the morning. Nobody's in the club. Your dad's playing, and he's supposed to end the gig at 2. But, you're like, let's go. Let's get out of here. But he said no.
Yeah.
There's a major lesson you learned there.
Yeah. Well, the gig was actually, till 2:30, so that was worse. It was 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
And, I had sat in these clubs and seen my father play for no people for years. By that point, it's like I had grown up being in clubs with no people, and I just, come on, man, let's go.
No people.
The one guy is drunk. We've been in these dives all these years. No one is here. He had a situation where he could lock the club up. It's owned by a guy named Charlie Baring. And I said, let's go. Can we go? It was just me and him. And he said, sit your down and listen to the music. And I never really listened to the music. I was always in the club just for the hang and to be the little kid in the room and adults tell me the nasty stories and all of that.
11 years old.
Yeah, but I grew up in the environment.
Can you share some of those stories?
No, not here. Not in this time, no. No, under those circumstances. So then when he told me that, it was actually the first time I actually listened. And I remember sitting there thinking, what makes a person sit in a room with nobody for this long playing something the way he's playing it? And that was a transformative moment for me in my life. And I actually reflect on that. We just came back from playing with the St. Louis Symphony last week. And our band, we had to get together a Bernstein piece, Prelude, Fugues, and Riffs, which is not the style that we play. So when I realized we were playing it, we started calling people, man, yo, look at this part. We're going to have to sit up there and play this, and this is not our style. And the saxophone section played so well and had such pride and played their parts on such a high level. I sat on the stage, and when they finished playing, we were all in the brass. We were proud of them because they had a really difficult part to play. And when I sat there, the hall was packed with people, and it was Dave Robinson's, the conductor's final year. I reflected once again on my father, and I had the opportunity to play in front of all these people, and he just, so I reflected on the type of integrity that he demonstrated, and that value is internal, and that if you value something, you value that. You don't have to have. So now we have all of these, and I have the opportunity to work once again with unbelievable people. It has been I'm not saying it like I actually sometimes, the other day I got full just thinking about the quality of people that I've had the good fortune to work with. And I reflected in that moment on my father.
Powerful moment.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Was your dad ever sentimental?
No.
No. I knew the answer.
He's
to
not that type of good person.
Not at all.
No, one time me and my mama, we were really, really fighting a lot. I was 16. It was really time for me to get out of my house. And so I told my daddy, he was not big on talking, man, let's have a talk, But one time he said, I need to rap with you. So I knew it was a problem. We sat in the car. He said, man, I said, man, mama's a drag. I went through all my things, my problem with my mama. My daddy listened to it very patiently. He said, look, man, he said, I knew mama before I knew you. He said, now, mama is my old lady. He said, if mama leaves, we don't eat, our bills don't get paid, stuff does not get taken care of. If you leave, we have more money. Now, but he was very serious when he wasn't joking, because I was passionate about my position. He was very serious. He said, now, I'm gonna leave it to you to work this out. because you're making good money yourself. You can go on your own. He was a big believer that you should leave. My father's not a sentimentalist about you 16 or 15. You're working, you have money, leave. And he wasn't playing. Like it wasn't like, you know. So I had a couple of rejoinders, and he said, do you understand what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
And
He's not an emotional guy either.
no, he's not like that. You almost never saw him get mad, never saw him complain, never saw him overwhelmed emotionally by a circumstance. He was not, he'd always buy the ugliest car and drive it until it broke down, and he'd go get another ugly one. Yeah. And it'd be, you know, we would be like, man, where you find these vehicles? He had like a green Corvair van with the battery inside the vehicle exposed. And we'd be like.
But you're an emotional guy.
Yeah, I'm more like my mama. That's why we fought so much.
Yeah.
Very, very like passionate, fiery, like to get fired up. Sometimes I just holler and scream and cuss and go off. When I was younger, now I'm mellowing out just for the fun of it. I wouldn't even be serious. It'd just be.
Just go off.
Yeah, I just like it, you know.
Just to feel it.
Let's get a feeling up in here. Let's get something going up in
sir.
here.
Yes, sir. You talked about being full a second ago recently. When's the last time you cried?
Man, I mean,
Happy tears or sad ones?
No, I just, you know, Ted Nash and I, we were laughing because we're around the same age. And we say, man, we played a piece by Chris Crenshaw. This is not the last time I cried, but we played a piece by Christopher Crenshaw. He's a young musician in our band, fantastic. Transcribes Ellington's music, has perfect pitch, perfect time. He's like a human metronome. And we encountered him when he was a student at Juilliard. And he wrote a piece for the band. He's a trombonist and conductor and everything in the group. And the piece was so good that when we finished playing it, we stood up to clap for Chris at the end. And I looked down. Now, I had my contact lenses on that allowed me to read music, so I couldn't actually see Ted, but I couldn't distinguish his feature. But I looked at him, it looked like he was crying. You know? So I was getting full too. We just thought, man, all the work that Chris put in, how great this piece was. So as we were walking off the stage, Ted said, man, I couldn't really pick your face out because we're in the same kind of over 50 eye condition. He said, were you getting full? Were you crying? I said, man, I can't lie. I was getting full. He said, is it just that we're getting old or what is it? But I think, yeah, I get full a lot of times because I'm always working with younger people, and I work with people that I've worked with. And when I was in St. Louis, I got full because a lot of my friends I've had from when they were little come to me because they know the country is in trouble. One conversation I had with a young kid I met at St. Louis at Powell Hall when I played with the St. Louis Symphony in the early 80s. I was playing the Haydn Trumpet Concerto, and I met two younger white kids. One of those guys named Jeremy Davenport, and he told me, he's 48 now, and he said, back then you seemed like you were a lot older than us. He said, but I'm going to ask you something. He said, I live in New Orleans. He said, man, it's so much hate out here. He said that the impression you gave me and the impression my parents gave me, because they're hippies, I don't find that to be true. I find that it's so much hatred that I encounter that it overwhelms me. And that he then thanked me for kind of influence I had on him down through the years. And he said, what can we do about this? And I didn't have a good, adequate answer for him. I always say, you know, you generate feeling too, and you can't be overwhelmed. But when I cried was a schoolmate of mine, a guy named Steve Warren. We went to school in New Orleans when the kind of integration was very new. And of course it failed eventually and the schools became segregated as they were, but for a brief period in the 70s, they were integrated. So we had been friends our entire lives, basically. He brought his son from Oklahoma to hear the piece and hear our band. He came to me and he said, man, just, you know, we weren't talking about this. He said, man, I'm encountering so much hatred. He said, it's so much racial hatred. Yeah, you know, but underneath it, you have to feel the love that comes with being a human being. And he said, I look at them a certain way. He says, I know that love is there. And he says that when he does that, because he's naturally a person with a funny personality, an affable person you want to like, he said, when he tells them, I know that love is there. He was looking at me a certain way, it made me get full. Just because we were in school together, high school, all through these years, all different changes with our families and stuff, we've known each other. He drove however many hours. So yeah, I got full in that moment because I know he believes that. So that's kind of the last time. That was about 2 days ago. 3 days. It was 2 or 3 days ago.
I'm not going to ask you the time before that.
Yeah, no.
We'll let that be. Let's talk about Edward Kennedy Ellington, a man who put out 2,000 pieces of work, 50 years of work, worked tirelessly, got accolades in the city, in the country, around the world. Sounds familiar, right? Slightly familiar.
I wish.
Won every imaginable award. Do you remember the first time you became acquainted and moved by his work?
Well, I knew about him. My father would listen to his records like Such Sweet Thunder, but I didn't like it. I had the chance to go see Duke in 1971. He played at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. My father said, "Hey, man, you want to go see Duke?" I said, "No, man, I don't. That's some old people, Jerry Taller. No, man, I don't want to go. I'm going to play some street football." So I didn't see Duke.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize about his music all through high school. I didn't really listen to him. And then when I came to New York, I got a Smithsonian collection of jazz that was annotated by Gunther Schuller. So I looked at Gunther's name, and Gunther Schuller had auditioned me and let me into Tanglewood at the fellowship program a year early. So because I saw his name, I started to read his notes. Because I read his notes, I put Duke's music on. And this was music from like the 30s and the 40s, decades I would never listen to music from that time, then, at that time. And then it was unbelievable. I was just listening to one piece after the other. I said, how in the world could a musician be this great, and I have absolutely no knowledge of their music and have been around the music my whole life. Then I just started to study his music and read about him.
How did it speak to you?
It's just the depth of the craftsmanship as a musician, the craftsmanship of the compositions, the sophistication of it, the depth of it. It's like people talking, the originality of it and the range of it. Then the more you discover, damn, he did this too, he did that, he did this. You start to realize about the band and philosophically the things that he was saying, and it continues. Even now, I gotta just his belief and the depth of his understanding and his creativity and his dedication.
Sure. There's a great story about how he became named Duke, nicknamed Duke. Mm-hmm. His boys came up with this story. Mm-hmm. Tell that.
Well, it's because Duke was always so gracious and elegant, and he was always so regal in his bearing, they started to call him Duke. And Duke also, his nickname stuck because of how he was. And he also was one of from what all the musicians tell me, they say, boy, Duke Ellington could pay better compliments to people than any person you ever met because he was insightful. So when he gave you a compliment, it was actually something that was really true. And that he enjoyed demonstrating a generosity of spirit. So I think that generosity is also in his music. He loves all the instruments. He lets people play. He loves other people's creativity.
So why'd you name this essentially Ellington and say not, Dizzy or, Miles or Train or somebody?
Well, Duke, it's like I go to what Miles said. Miles said that every musician should get on their knees once a year and thank Duke Ellington. Mm-hmm. I mean, Duke, he's the bard of 20th century America. He's the bard. Like he traveled the country. He played proms. He played dances. His music has everything in it: folk music, fiddle tunes, westerns, cowboy songs, Broadway show tunes, symphonic aspirations, regional blues, city music, film music, dance music. You can't imagine a person could have this much of what our life is in their music and to continue to work for 50 years. Only Bach is the only Western musician I can think of who had that type of sustained output and is that prolific. 2,000 pieces. You got to figure Bach had to write a service every Sunday, so he had to do it. Duke was on the road trying to keep his band going and trying to pay for everything that he was doing. And he wrote popular hits, long-form pieces. He innovated so many things. And he was a great piano player and a great lover and investigator of people. Mm-hmm. So I think for Jazzlinga Center, we would not have gotten our program off the ground if it were not for Duke's music, because we just wouldn't have had the substance. With Miles's music, you need him for it to be great. If he's not there, it's just some people trying to play like him failing. With Louis Armstrong's music, you need him to be there. You play the music from the Hot Seven, it sounds okay. It sounds like some people were trying to play. And maybe they'll sound okay, but where's Pops? With John Coltrane, you can try to play a Love Supreme, but you're so much sadder than him at playing it It's disappointing. It's like, now with Duke Ellington's music, because it's written down, it's interesting comment a person from the St. Louis Symphony told me, of course, not comparing myself to Duke Ellington and these great musicians, because that's truly heresy. But he made a point about how you prepare music. He said, he's a French horn player, he said, thank you for writing the music so it can be played without you. Because for you to write it, for you not to be there, you have to write everything out. It takes an unbelievable amount of time. Just dots and dashes alone is not the type of thing, if you're not kind of anal, you're not going to want to do that. Like just the dots alone. I'm telling you, it takes like a month just to, you get dots and dashes over every note. Can you imagine putting a dot and a dash over 480,000 notes?
No.
You don't want to do it.
No.
And you have to play it and make sure it's da-da and the violins, boards a certain way. So when he said that, I had to laugh. And I think with Duke made it so that we could play music that did not require him. And many of his pieces, he's not even playing on. And we took that opportunity to form our institution around the strength of his music. The first Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra was all surviving Ellingtonians and members of my septet and of Thad Jones's band. So you had 60 to 70-year-olds with 40 to 50-year-olds with 20 to 30-year-olds. And that was a rough band because the old men was, they were rough. They taught us how to play it. You know, they would tell you, boy, you can't play. Is that what they're teaching y'all to play in these schools? Damn, you can't. And let me tell you about they were always on time.
Yeah.
They would have suits on and already have drank 2 or 3 beverages at 8 in the morning.
Adult beverages.
Adult, yeah, they were adults. You know, and one day we were on the bus, we went on that road with that first band in I want to say 1992 or something. Man, we were on the road with them and we were young, always late. One day, the old men were on the bus and it was real quiet when we walked on 15 or 20 minutes late. It was an uncomfortable silence, and Norris Turney was the one who was elected to address us. He always spoke like, young man. He stood up and he said, let me tell you young something. If I can be here with my suit on time, have your young. On time. And we were on time after that. So those kind of things, you know, they taught us. The great Lou Soloff was in that band. Clark Terry played with us. Willie Cook, Jimmy Woody, Sir Roland Hanna. Of course, the great Joe Temperley, Norris Turney, Britt Woodman, Ellingtonian. We had a lot of the original people who played with Duke. And it's how we learned how to play the music.
Sure. This program, is it going to find the next big thing, the next young prodigy? 23 years of it. Take us through the highs and the lows.
You know, for me, I try not to have my kids or put the pressure on them to be like, my father used to always call it being in the circus. I think I like the overall. Like, I love the kids who don't even become musicians. They go through this program. I love the general rise. It's unbelievable the level kids are playing on now. Because it's not something you could imagine.
How so?
Man, when we got to the 3rd year of this, I remember thinking, man, you know, I got to go listen to a bunch of sad bands. And we didn't have bass players who could play acoustic bass. We didn't have any clarinet players. Kids didn't know how to play plunger music, and we almost never heard soloists who could play on harmony. Now, you talk about, do I get full? There have been years here where I get full. One year, a band played From Memory, The Tattooed Bride, which is one of Duke Ellington's most difficult pieces. Man, I couldn't help crying. Jeff Hamilton is the judge I sit next to. I love him. He's a fantastic drummer and unbelievable musician, also very funny. So I was sitting up there crying, Dave Berg and I, we both were getting full, thinking of the distance bands had come over. I guess this was in our 17th or 18th year. Man, we're sitting there getting full, and Jeff Hamilton looks over at us. He could tell we're getting full. We're not supposed to be partial to bands. And he goes, they were playing without music, too. Okay, they read this 17-minute piece with no music. And this was kids that the teacher had taught since they were in elementary school. So just that they would do that for him, I mean, the whole thing was overwhelming. So while we're getting full and crying and trying to wipe our eyes, and, you know, Jeff Hamilton goes, damn, didn't anybody teach these damn kids how to read music? So you know, it just, for me, I love sitting next to Jeff. That's a high. Every year I get to see him. I only see him at this time of year, and he's one of our great musicians and drummers. And just, I love sitting next to them, but there's been so many highs. The quality, the way people are playing, the fact that we challenge them with the best music, the music of Duke Ellington, and the fact that over these years they play on so much higher of a level. Like the first 10 years was rough. But it's like how we played as a big band. I'm going through our entire archives because we're trying to put out a lot of our recordings. And when I listen to those first 5 or 6 years, I say to myself, boy, people really wanted us to survive. Because, boy, we sound terrible. Trying to figure out how to play Duke's music, trying to figure out how to play these styles that we were actually terrible in these concerts. And our audiences stayed with us, and they bear with us. And then when I got, after a certain period, it started to sound good. And then once it sounded good, it always sounded good. And I think with our kids, there's been so many great ones. Down through, we have one kid that came through the program in '99. I remember Tatum Greenblatt. He's playing today in my place. He's playing my chair, and I'm doing the different things that I do. But I remember when I first heard Tatum and another trumpet player named Brandon Lee. They came up the same year as Duke's Centennial. And I thought, man, we got 2 people play this good in 1 year. And maybe in the 80s, I could go around the country for a whole year and hear maybe 1 or 2 people who could actually play the vocabulary of jazz in 5 years. It's a very difficult vocabulary to learn. If your parents didn't play it, it's hard to actually play in the reality of the music. And so many kids here now who can do that. And I'm so unbelievably proud and blessed to hear them and the effort that they put in, and they really are playing. Like they're not playing around.
Where do you want to take this? What's the next decade look like?
I think we should go around the world, and we get more student compositions. There's a fantastic composition this year by a young lady from Florida, Summer Camargo is her name, and she's a great trumpet player from a band that has had a history of great trumpet players. But what I love about what she represents and what the trumpet players begin is actual quality, like you actually can play. Because in music, it's not like athletics. You don't have to beat anybody. So it's someone I can say you can play, you can play. If you can get 100 people to say you can play, 1,000, you can play. So what it takes in that type of environment for you to actually want to learn how to play, it takes a lot more integrity. Yeah, I was telling you a story of my daddy. After I won 2 Grammys, I was sitting in a room with my father. My father's not really into Hollywood and didn't know about all that kind of stuff. I'd asked him and my mama to come out to the Grammys, and my daddy was shocked by how sad most of it was. So he's sitting there looking at me. I won these awards, so he don't want to douse me, but he's thinking, damn, this is what music, these people can't play nothing, it's loud. So he was looking at me, and I'm trying to go out, and my daddy goes, man, I'm glad you won this stuff, but you don't think this means you can play, do you? Like he wanted to make sure. I was like 22, and I couldn't actually play.
Come
really.
on.
Man, I couldn't really play.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
I mean, play means you really actually can play, like Clark Terry or somebody who really can play.
You were faking it.
I mean, I wasn't faking it. I was saying, I'm not trying to get better. I was young, and I couldn't really play. I'm trying to learn how to play, but I'm getting awards like I can play.
Okay.
You see, that's what he's saying.
There's a difference.
Yeah, you get an award. It don't mean you can play. You won an award. Somebody's got to win it. You won. I mean, but he wasn't being jive about it. He was big actually for real. Because my father is the least kind of dousing or least, he's just not a person that don't have that kind of thing, competition, want to be. He's like really for real. But he was concerned about it. He was like, man, you out here seeing all of this BS. I hope you're not going to get caught up in this because you're getting some award. You really can't play. So, but it was really for real. That's all I'm just telling you.
Duke was eminently quotable. There are a lot of quotes attributed to him. Stop me when you like one. I got a bunch here, right?
Yeah.
A problem is a chance for you to do your best.
Yeah.
I merely took the energy it takes to pout and wrote some blues.
Right. I love that one.
What do you like about that one?
What I like about that one, it has that indomitable rising spirit. Like, hey, we fail, we fall. Instead of, we have problems. Yeah, we're in a tough period. Let's see the solution. Let's not avenge the wrong. Let's create the solution.
Music is my mistress, and she plays second fiddle to no one. Sit. By and large, jazz has always been like the kind of a man you wouldn't want your daughter to associate with. Next. My attitude is never to be satisfied, never enough, never. That sounds about right.
Yeah, I love that. Why be satisfied? But I had a great teacher, Bill Fielder. He talked in a high voice like this. Yeah, man. You got to be always gratified and never satisfied. So I called a great trumpet player, Sean Jones. I don't know if y'all know his playing. He's unbelievable trumpet player. He's going to run the jazz program at Peabody next year. He played in the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra for a while. He's conducting the Carnegie Hall Band that's going to Europe of high school kids this year. He's made many great records. He also studied with this teacher, Bill Fielder, many years after me. But I would call Sean sometimes and just say, hey, man, imitate Prof for me. Because Prof passed away. So sometimes I just have to hear his voice. And so Sean will go into his Prof Fielder. Well, it's air, you see. Now you can almost play, but there's just something in there that's just not quite honest.
So have you ever been musically gratified or musically satisfied?
Yeah, I'm never satisfied with what I'm doing, ever.
Never. Not
never.
once. That was pretty good. That show, we killed it. We crushed it.
I think that about us, yeah, many times. I told you, when just Ryan Kaiser, the guy I sit next to, he's such a great trumpet player and lead player. Well, we played last week, maybe he missed one note in 4 days. Like the level he plays on is, and I have the blessing of sitting next to him. And, I'm older than him, so he'll tell me something like he grew up and he had a poster of me or he knew about me. And Kenny Rampton, the way he played, when we played Black, Brown, and Beige, looking at Chris Crenshaw conduct Black, Brown, and Beige, or just, I'm not gonna say we're satisfied with our playing. We always have a saying in rehearsal when we're playing, I will say or somebody else will say, is that great? We're supposed to be great. We're supposed to be this and that. Does that sound great to you? Like, are we gonna just play out of tune like that? Or are we gonna, but what can I say about the love I have for my band? And the orchestra, people all over the world always comment on it. The St. Louis Symphony was commenting on the level that they play on. And we played in the halls of Europe this last spring. Every presenter, all the orchestral musicians who come, the Berlin Philharmonic, when we played with them, even in 2010, they were saying, damn, where do you find them? And that was 7 years ago. But they play on such a high level so consistently that I just wish more people knew what they do and what they're capable of.
If Duke were here today, what would he say about the state of music?
Well, he would probably hate the state of music, but he wouldn't say it.
But you'll say it.
He was too, I say it because it's a social battle. I don't mind saying it. I've been saying it since I was 16, basically. It does not do any good, but I believe when you're in the arts, you have to shout into the wind. And I think Bach was shouting into the wind. I feel like at a certain point, Bach got demoted in his job for writing the St. Matthew's Passion. This is probably the greatest musician, not probably, it's the greatest musician in Western music in terms of his musical skills, his insight, the depth of his music, the seriousness. And as an older person, he was demoted in his job for writing one of the great masterpieces. So I go to that moment all the time because I think of, man, this is Johann Bach. I mean, master of counterpoint, master of consolidator of all 12 keys, inventor of the 10-finger way of playing the keyboard. We could go on and on. And he's now teaching math in a boys' school in Leipzig or somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And because he wrote this masterpiece. And I think that we live in an era of absolute absurdum in music. The vulgarity, the profanity, the ignorance of it, the cynicism, the exploitation of stereotypes. I've been saying it since I was in high school. And I believe it, I see it, I encounter it, I listen to it, I teach kids. We have made a mistake. I said it, I'm gonna keep saying it, I don't care if nobody listens. You cannot turn this level of filth over to 11 and 12-year-olds on videos and with music as the nuclear warhead discarrying it. You cannot do it. It is a mistake. It's yielding terrible fruit. I'm telling you, like the person who would have said these rats are what the bubonic plague is coming from, and you don't know it, you're letting people's blood out. Look at these rats. Look at these rats.
They just gave the Pulitzer for music to a hip hop star.
That doesn't, it's not, okay, you got to give it to somebody. I go to what my daddy says about that. Okay, I don't, it's like, you want to couch that, you got to give it to, I think, the awards are like you can put a suit on and you can go and you can smile and you can, but it's not serious enough. What I'm talking about is this is a serious problem. And I saw it in the 1980s. I'd be in an elementary school and some little guy would come up and start grabbing himself in a presentation. Third grader, I'd ask the principal, well, that's what the young people do now. This kid's in third grade, why is he grabbing his Johnson? Everybody, well, that's what they do nowadays.
Okay.
That's what they do nowadays. And I'd be like, what kind of, we lost our mind out here? And I mean, that was in the 80s, so you got to feel like we've been developing this. Everything cannot be for sale. It cannot be a product. I mean, I'm all for, your rights and amendment and nonsense and shit, but it is a mistake. You cannot turn middle school kids and their developing sexuality into a market. We do it, we keep doing it. It is not going to yield good fruit. So I'm proud of Sentimental Ellington.
Let's. We say we end on an up note.
That's a good note.
No.
Stop doing that.
We know that note. But in times where people feel, they feel despair, there's division, there's tension throughout the country in many ways. Can music heal us? Can music save us? And if so, how?
I go back to, sometime when I was 6 years old, I didn't live with my family for a year. I lived with my great aunt and my great uncle. Well, he was a stone cutter for the cemetery. Now, I didn't know why. It's been back in those days. Kids, you didn't know what was going on. But my great aunt, she would always pick me, and she had like a old school double mastectomy. So, she grew up on a plantation, and she would kind of pick me up, and I can always remember because it's not something people from my mama's generation would do. And she would rock back and forth, and she would go, and because I would be leaning on her chest, I could hear like the music inside of her, So and it's not something I even thought about till later. It's and it was something in what she was singing, and just, the rocking of it. And it was something so deep in it. And she was a very quiet woman, never talked, and was hunched over, and had been like a maid and a domestic worker of the old school black sort her entire life. And my great uncle was not the nicest man. He wasn't mean, but he was old school, kind of stern, not, and
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thank y'all.